Good evening. It's a real cold Sunday afternoon. It's cold, it's rainy, it's miserable, and it's a wonderful day to have a zesty cottage pie. Something that's zesty that just warms you up. So as promised last week, I'm going to make that cottage pie. It takes 2.5 hours from start to finish. So I've done a lot of prep work ahead of time, so hopefully we won't spend 42 hours in the video. And hopefully we can seem to compress that even down to maybe a half hour, because there's a lot of simmer time and things, so we can listen to music. You can listen to music and have a drink, like I'm going to have a drink. And so let's get cooking. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually make my, I have diced onions here. And as you saw from my first video, when you have the big chunks of onions, and I like them sauteed, it takes 20 minutes. But with diced onions, it takes maybe 15 minutes. So I'm going to do one big onion. It's been decored out, and then I'll add a little bit of garlic to it, and we'll use that as our base for our cottage pie. So with one onion diced, I'm going to use 1 teaspoon, heaping teaspoon, because I like garlic, to be honest with you. And I like this pureed garlic. I don't like, cutting up garlic buds and stuff, because it just adds a lot of extra time to it. And, just out of convenience, it's just nice to have the pureed stuff. So I'm going to use 1 big heaping teaspoon. And from here, we'll just start the saute. So anyway, pour yourself a stiff drink, and I'll see you back in another 15 minutes. Love a good chewing time. Okay, 15 minutes has passed. My diced onions are very sauteed. Anybody who knows me knows I like my onions sauteed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to add, I have diced carrots and I have diced green beans. And the green beans are cut within 2 to 3 centimeters. Carrots in quarters, or even up to 8 pieces per slice, depending on the size of the onion, the carrot. And I use 3 medium carrots here. The reason I cook these now is, even though you'll simmer these vegetables with some minced meat for about 20 minutes with some sauce, I really don't think that, even with 20 minutes in a simmer pot, and even 30 minutes in the oven baking, I really don't think that the vegetables are really that cooked enough. So actually what I do is I will actually cook them for another 5 minutes. So let me stir fry these for another 5 minutes, and then we'll get on to the next step. Okay. The vegetables have been simmering, or pan frying on a somewhat high heat for about 5 minutes, and actually they're looking kind of nice. They're getting a little translucent, and they're going to be soft after we simmer them back with the mince and when we cook them. So right now I'm just going to take these vegetables off the heat and just let them sit for a little bit. And now I'm going to actually start cooking the mince. I have I have 750 milligrams of mince that we're going to use. I got the pan pretty hot, and we'll just start to brown the meat. Actually, it looks a little hot, so let's just tone that down just a tad. There you go. Unfortunately, with this mince, I used 2 ounces of olive oil, but you can tell that this mince is actually quite lean. I typically buy fatty mince because I don't like lean meat because actually it has no flavor to it. So actually I like the fat, the grease. It actually has a lot of flavor to the recipe. So while it's cooking there, I'm going to add another ounce of olive oil. There it goes. It's actually starting to cook properly now. There it is. When you get that high crackle like that, it typically means that the meat is actually quite lean. You just have to add some extra oil to it, then it'll recover. And I'm cooking about 6 out of 9, which is, I guess, a medium heat. And let's just let this cook for 4 or 5 minutes, and then I'll get right back to you. Okay, after about 5 minutes on a medium heat, the mince is getting pretty cooked here. Now I'm going to put the vegetables that I took off back onto the mince. And we don't want to waste any of this. I'll make sure I scoop them all out. Alright. Then also, I got a big mixture here of spice and sauce. I have 1 tablespoon of parsley, 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning. I have 2 tablespoons of sriracha. Typically I use 3, but what I'm going to do is actually, since it's a cold, miserable night, I only put 2 in, and actually I'm going to add some Chinese chili powder just to give it an extra kick. So just warm the house up here. Half teaspoon of black pepper. 3 tablespoons of Worcester sauce. Half cup of Pinot Noir. I prefer Pinot Noir because it really doesn't have a lot of taste to it, but you know, it does have a background taste to it. You really don't want to use like a Shiraz or something with a lot of woody aftertaste because it's just going to overwhelm the cottage pie. So I would strongly suggest you don't do that. 1 cup of beef broth, 1 bouillon cube of beef, and also I use 2 to 3 bay leaves. And I think today I just used 2 today. But we're going to put that in here. And we're just going to let this simmer for probably about 25 minutes. Because it's going to have to get up to speed here because you know the seasonings and the juice and stuff are pretty cold. Also, now is a good time to get the stove cooking or getting it hot, ready to bake. Because once we have the mince, and then I'll show you in 10 minutes that I want to get the potatoes cooking here for the mash. I think now is actually a good time to get the oven started, preheated. So it's now at 180 Celsius. And by the time all this is simmered properly, and then I have all the potatoes ready to go. The oven should be up to speed. So in about 10 minutes, we'll get back to you and show you how to make mashed potatoes that will cover the top of the cottage pie. Okay, it's been simmering for about 10 minutes now. Let's just take a quick taste of the mince. Actually quite nice, but you know, one thing I'm kind of afraid to give you an absolute value of how you should salt your dish, because this meat actually is kind of unsalty. It's funny, you know, some mince can be very salty. This is actually undersalted, and so I'm actually going to add a little bit of extra salt to it. Much closer. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 1/4 cup to 1/3 cup of flour. What flour does, I'm going to use 2 tablespoons here, is actually it thickens the mixture up, and you really don't want to add this when you're making your mixture in the bowl, because the flour can actually kind of clump up and turn into like little dough balls, which really becomes a problem. So once everything is simmering, then mix in the flour. And you can see how immediately it pulls in the moisture and makes it a nice thick gravy. So I would highly suggest that you do not add the flour until after everything's been simmered well. It's looking good. So let's let this simmer for about another 10 minutes, and I'll get back to you, and we'll start the mash with the potatoes for the topping. Oh, you're back. All right, we're ready. So the mince and the vegetables have been simmering for about 20-25 minutes. And one thing you really need to check is that the solid meat, the vegetables, and the grease or the sauce is actually at the same level, which is kind of hard to do because you don't want it to fall in the pot here. But so you can see the solids, the grease or the sauce, same level. So that's actually perfect. And since I've added extra salt, perfect. So now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to grease a pan. We're going to bake this, but we want the mince to actually go into the pan, cool down, because you need the mince actually to be kind of hard or firm, so when you put the mash on top, it's like there, and you can just spread the topping on, and you don't have all this goo pushing everywhere. So what I'm going to do right now is nothing sticks to duck fat. Duck fat is the most awesome grease to ever cook with. It's got flavor, it's greasy, nothing sticks to it. So what I'm going to do is grease the pan, the oven pan. And I do the edges too, because as things bake over, you don't want hard crusties on the side, and it takes forever to scrub that stuff off. So the whole thing is nice and greasy. It's going to taste good. I think the mince is done after 25 minutes. I think it's perfect. It tastes good. So let's pour it in the pan. And good quantities for this pan, because you want maybe like an inch, 2 centimeters worth of potato top on top of this. There you go. Just kind of level it off. This is the base. This is going to be awesome. You can tell just by looking at the carrots. There's some translucency here. Still a little bit firm. The green beans, a little bit firm. It's not too greasy, not too soft. Perfect zest, salt, flavor. This is awesome. So what we're going to do with this, we're just going to move it over to the side and let it chill and kind of harden up. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the potatoes. When I cut my potatoes, just cut the bad parts off. No one wants to eat these bad black spots, but I do like my potato mash with the skin on it, actually. To me, the skin of potato adds flavor. By itself, it's just kind of flavorless. That spot. Alright. Cut in half. Then I'm going to cut it in 6 pieces. For a medium potato like that, cut it in half, and then 3 pieces on each side. So, 6 pieces. The bigger potatoes, you probably want to cut in, bigger pieces, but you really don't want anything bigger than this. Because with this, we're going to parboil these, light boil for about 20 minutes. After that, we'll do a fork check to actually see how hard the fork goes into the potatoes. And if it's really crunchy, you can kind of feel that resistance, and you just need to wait a few more minutes. But typically about 20 minutes with heavily salted water. Now typically I put a lot of black pepper in mine also, because I love black pepper in my mashed potatoes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let the mince rest. And then I'm going to bring the pot over from the water from the kettle, and we're going to boil some potatoes with some Himalayan salt, black pepper. And when I salt my water for the mashed potatoes, I make it salty like the sea salt, the seawater. You want it that salty, and that kind of permeates the potato pieces. And I don't know. Maybe it's just my taste or my palate, but I just love salty potatoes. So that's what we're going to do. So come back in 10 minutes and we'll show you the progress of the mashed potatoes. Hey, welcome back. Actually, I think we've boiled these potatoes for 25 minutes instead of the 20 that I promised you. But for some reason, these potatoes were really, hard for some reason. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a really big piece of potato. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the resistance test. If you can push a fork through it without a lot of effort, like that, that potato's done. So which tells me that these potatoes are ready to be made into a mash. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain the potatoes and start making a mash. So let's protect the hands here. Gotta stay away from the steam because it can kind of burn your face or make your eyebrows curl a little bit. Yeah, you can just smell them. They're cooked. Just gotta drain them a little bit. It takes a while. That's probably about right. So we're going to use some salted butter, some cream, and we're going to use some chicken broth. And I'll explain in a few seconds why I'm choosing chicken broth, even though we're using a beef cottage pie. I'll explain my reasoning here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a few, I don't know, that's probably about 2 or 3 tablespoons of salted butter. Into the potatoes. A little bit of, I love Himalayan salt. It's just really nice, and it's actually a clean salt. Because table salt, it just seems to lack some flavor. Maybe half a teaspoon. And to be honest with you, I like a lot of black cracked pepper. So let's cut pepper here. Yeah, it's probably about half a teaspoon. So let's just cut these potatoes up. Small pieces. Oh yeah. Need my mash. I'm going to use a splash of cream. I know for some of you, I guess for the normal people who don't have lactose issues, I would use a lot more cream. But it's kind of cruel to actually live in a beautiful country where you have a lot of awesome dairy, but I can't eat dairy. The problem is, if I eat dairy, it's going to cause me a lot of problems. So that's why I'm very sparingly with the salted butter and the cream, and then I use a lot of chicken salt to actually add the creaminess to the mashed potatoes. Because, to be honest with you, I don't want to squirt like a goose. So I'm going to mash potatoes. Let it smell like cream in there. Oh. I love salted butter. Alright. It's getting there, but actually I'm going to add more chicken stock because I want my mashed potatoes to be a bit extra soupy because I want the mashed potatoes to actually spread evenly and easily onto the meat base, and the heat from the oven is actually going to bake the moisture out of the potato topping anyway. So there we go, make it extra soupy. And one last ingredient, because I don't want the mashed potatoes to really compete with the cottage pie, so I make it a little bit weaker. I use 2 handfuls of Colby cheese. I'm going to use one in the mash. And then I'm going to use the other half, plus a little bit of mozzarella, because I love mozzarella because it actually has a lot of flavor to it. And I want that crunch on top of the mash. There we go. So nice and soupy. Actually, I'm going to use a little bit more juice. Smell that cheese in there. It's just awesome. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to spread this soupy mash on top of the cottage pie. You've got to have a nice top on it, topping. And I love this spreader. It just makes things very easy to spread. You just don't want to go over the top. That's what I talked about before, where you really don't want the mince to be too hot and soupy. You want it to harden up so you can put the mash top on top of it, and it just spreads fairly easy. Fill in a few of these gaps. Alright. Still have a lot of mashed potatoes left over. I'll probably go back and when you're not looking, I'll probably nibble on that myself. Wait for the cottage pie to bake. So now I have another handful of Colby cheese here. Just kind of sprinkle on top. Something about hard, cooked, crusty cheese on top of anything. It's awesome. There we go. And here we got some mozzarella. Kind of give it a little bit of that Italian feel about it. Since we put Italian seasoning in the mix itself, it should complement it. There we go. By now, the oven's 180 Celsius, as can be, and I'm going to put this in the oven and let this bake for 30 minutes approximately. What I'll do is I'll let it go into the oven for about 20 minutes, and I'll pull back out, and then I'm actually going to paste with some salted butter on it because I love a good crust on a potato bake, like on top on this. So you can never have a casserole like this without a nice crunch to it. So I'll check after about 20 minutes. So let's cook it. Now it's time to make a gin and tonic, and then just wait 20 minutes. I'll be right back with you. 20 20 minutes later, cottage pie has been cooking. Not quite done, but we're going to actually put a nice crunchy salted butter crust on it, because there's nothing better than a nice crunch on a cottage pie. So cottage pie has been in the oven for 20 minutes. Looks like we have a little bit of spillage, but that's okay. We can recover from that. Oh, all right. Oh. Wow, look at that. Oh. Bubbling white napalm, but it's not quite done. We're probably going to cook it for another, I want to say 15 minutes, because even though I told you probably 10, but looking at it, I can just tell you right now. Let me just give you the way it tastes. I'm still going to predict maybe it's probably another 15 minutes. So it's going to be, instead of 10 minutes, it'll be 15, and then let's just give it a nice salty butter crust, which is nice and crunchy. Oh, my heart's going to hate me, but I'm going to love the taste of this thing, I tell you what. Oh. Make sure all the butter is distributed. I can tell you right now, just look at this. You can see the cheese is starting to crust up a little bit. You can actually hear that taunt, resounding sound. It's getting there. So in about 10-15 minutes, I really do think this will be done. So don't let that bother you. Just a little bit of the juice is falling up down to the bottom of the oven. You know, it's just nothing that photography can't clean. And we'll just have to sit and wait and have another gin tonic. And we'll just have to wait another 15 minutes. Well, it's been 10, actually I think it's been 15 minutes now, and good Lord, this is nice and crunchy, nice and brown. So let's just open this thing. Wow. So sorry about that. Had a little bit of dripping on the bottom of the oven, but wow. Look at that. It doesn't get any more perfect than that. Wow. Look at that. Look at that. Can you hear that? Wow. That's a nice crunch. Nice crispy crunch from the cheese and the butter. Oh. Oh. Oh my God. I keep outdoing myself here. But yeah, this is as good as it gets. So right now, we'll just let this thing heat, cool down for about 10-15 minutes, and we'll cut it open and we'll try it. But this is why I explained before about the duck fat. Is see how easy that is to scrape off? Still kind of chunky there, but you understand why I'm using duck fat now, because nothing, I mean absolutely nothing sticks to duck fat. It makes life so much easier to clean up after the fact, and actually duck fat tastes so much nicer than any other oils or greases or whatever. So we're about the end of this video, and wow, it doesn't get better than this. So I can't wait to cut this thing open in about 10 minutes, and then we'll just call it a day. Take care. Alright, plate's cool, somewhat cool. We've let it sit for about 15 minutes. You know, I surprised had 10, but it's like when you have white napalm, you know, you gotta let it cool. It's just hot. And you can just, oh. Oh, as this potato, as green meat came up, it just dry. Actually, it's cooked very nice. That's why, you know, when you cook the meat, throw in the vegetables an extra 5 minutes, because actually that 5 minutes makes a big difference in the texture of the vegetables. Oh, it's going to be real nice. Ooh, look at that. Oh, just terrible, just terrible. So you got a hard, cheesy crust. You got a mint. Oh. Even the vegetables. Very soft, very nice. And sometimes, I have to say, you know, with this recipe, I've actually had to sneak sometimes and put it in the microwave for an extra minute to actually cook the vegetables. Extra minute, but oh, that's just perfect. So, that's what you have. Zesty cottage pie. Just perfect. Actually, I can't be any more happier because, you know, when I do this for myself, it's always good. But actually, to do this in front of the camera and actually have the same result, that must mean that this recipe must be really good and dependable because I did it. And I'm extremely happy with this. So, next week, if you have any vegetarian family members or people who are fussy, I'm going to give you a good recipe for how to make a creamy, you know, kind of a oven-baked creamy mushroom, and which you can put over polenta, you can put over a toast, but it's going to be awesome. So, even if you have some fussy family members or neighbors, you're going to make them happy. So, we'll see you later. Bye.